So, my husband and I have a lovely marriage. We just celebrated our 2-year anniversary last month, and I am currently 14 weeks pregnant. This whole situation is our one and only issue, and I sure hope maybe someone can give me an idea I haven't had already. I am a pastor's daughter, and I am religious as an adult. I'm not outwardly Christian, however, because I am familiar with a lot of the hateful rhetoric that is perpetuated by certain individuals holding my same religion. Personally, I'm not like that at all. My number one rule is Jesus loves everyone, and so do I. My church is very progressive and very diverse. I love it there, because I am not very outward in my faith. When I met my husband, he did not know for a while. It was only after months and months, the first time he came to my apartment, when he saw my Bible. He asked about it, and I explained what I did up there. That was the start. My husband is a very anti-organized religion, and honestly, I get it. I really do. I find that sometimes churches prove to be more harm than good. But we just agreed to disagree, until now. Within the last year, my husband has gotten more and more agitated with my religious and church habits. I go every Sunday by myself, and this has suddenly become a problem. He tells me it's unsafe to go by myself. And when I proved that it wasn't, it changed to weird. He says I shouldn't go without him. My answer to that was him coming with me. But he told me he'd rather die. So I said, okay, we are agreeing to disagree again. Well, ever since I got pregnant, it has been especially bad. My husband consistently makes remarks about his wife and baby going to church without him. And I consistently tell him it doesn't have to be that way. It's gotten to a point where every Sunday, we have an entire argument before I go. He literally started to hide my Bible, or my keys, or my shoes, or my purse, to make me be late or not go. Last 2 Sundays ago, he threatened to not be home when I got home. I ended up not going, just staying home and crying, and he felt so bad that he came to church with me for the very first time ever. He wasn't happy, but my friends were happy to meet my husband. I think it made him feel worse. I've pretty much accepted now more than ever that we will never agree on this topic. So, what do I do? I do not want to give up my beliefs for him. I don't expect him to change for me. But wow, this can't keep going on like this. To add, my husband hates that I am religious and has been trying to stop me from going to church. I don't see either of us conforming to the other and have no idea what to do. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. You 100% should not give up your beliefs for him. The two of you need to have a sit-down conversation about boundaries. He does not need to like that you are religious, and he does not need to attend church or participate in religion. However, he does need to respect you and your religious practice. He is exhibiting controlling and potentially hurtful tendencies by hiding your keys. That needs to be over. I think it's also important for the two of you to figure out how religion will be addressed with your child. That's likely a trigger for him right now. Not saying his behavior is valid, because it isn't. Just pointing out a likely cause for his recent change of heart. Comment 2. I am an atheist, and I am shocked and appalled by your husband's behavior. If my wife wanted to go to church, she can go for it. If she wanted to take our son and he wanted to go, again, go for it. Your husband can share his beliefs with your son, too. Nothing is stopping him from doing that. I have no idea why he's so threatened by church, but he needs to realize how ridiculous he is being. He is becoming what he despises about organized religion, and he doesn't even see it. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, a lot has happened since the last post. Last Sunday, things took a turn for the worse. I woke up early to get ready for church, and my husband was already up, pacing around the living room. He looked at me and said, "We need to talk." I could tell he was serious, so I sat down. He told me that he couldn't stand the idea of our child being raised in a religious environment. He said he was worried that our child would be indoctrinated, and that he couldn't let that happen. I tried to reassure him that our child would have the freedom to choose their own path, but he wasn't having it. He said he wanted me to stop going to church altogether. I was shocked. I told him that my faith was a big part of who I am, and that I couldn't just give it up. He got angry and said that if I really loved him, I would do it for him and our child. I felt like he was asking me to choose between him and my faith, and it broke my heart. I told him that I couldn't make that choice and that we needed to find a way to compromise. He stormed out of the house, and I was left sitting there, feeling completely lost. I ended up going to church, but I couldn't focus on anything. My mind was racing, and I felt like I was on the verge of tears the whole time. When I got home, my husband was still gone. I spent the rest of the day alone, just trying to process everything. The next few days were tense. We barely spoke to each other, and when we did, it was just small talk. I could tell he was still angry, and I didn't know how to fix it. On Wednesday, I decided to reach out to my pastor for advice. I explained the situation to him, and he suggested that we try couples counseling. He said that it might help us find a way to communicate better and understand each other's perspectives. I brought up the idea to my husband that evening, and he was hesitant at first. He said he didn't think a counselor could change how he felt about religion. But I told him it wasn't about changing his beliefs. It was about finding a way for us to coexist peacefully. After a long discussion, he finally agreed to give it a try. We had our first counseling session on Friday. It was tough, but it felt good to finally talk about everything with a neutral third party. The counselor helped us see that we were both coming from a place of love and concern for our child, but we needed to find a way to respect each other's beliefs. She suggested that we set some boundaries and come up with a plan for how we would handle religious matters with our child. Over the weekend, we had some long conversations about what those boundaries would look like. We agreed that I would continue going to church, but I wouldn't pressure our child to come with me. We also decided that we would expose our child to different beliefs and let them make their own decision when they were old enough. It wasn't a perfect solution, but it felt like a step in the right direction. On Sunday, I went to church as usual, and my husband stayed home. When I got back, he was waiting for me with a cup of tea and a tentative smile. He said he had been thinking a lot about our conversations and that he wanted to try to be more supportive. He admitted that he still had a lot of reservations about religion, but he didn't want it to come between us anymore. I felt a huge sense of relief. It wasn't going to be easy, but it felt like we were finally on the same page. We spent the rest of the day together, just enjoying each other's company and talking about our hopes and dreams for the future. As the week went on, things started to feel more normal again. We still had our disagreements, but we were making an effort to communicate better and be more understanding of each other's perspectives. I could tell that my husband was trying, and it meant a lot to me. One night, as we were getting ready for bed, he told me that he had been doing some research on progressive churches and that he was starting to see that not all religious communities were the same. He said he still had a lot of concerns, but he was willing to keep an open mind. It was a small step, but it felt like progress. I also started to reflect on my own beliefs and how they fit into our relationship. I realized that I needed to be more mindful of how my actions affected my husband and our future child. I didn't want to push my faith on them, but I also didn't want to hide it. It was a delicate balance, and I knew it would take time to figure it out. As we navigated this new phase of our relationship, I couldn't help but think about my own upbringing. My parents had always been very religious, and I'd grown up in a strict household. I remembered how difficult it had been for me to find my own path and how much I had struggled with my faith. I didn't want my child to go through the same thing. I wanted them to have the freedom to explore and make their own decisions. One evening, I shared some of these thoughts with my husband. I told him about my struggles with my faith and how I had come to find my own way. He listened quietly, and when I was done, he said he appreciated my honesty. He said he could see how important my faith was to me and that he wanted to support me, even if he didn't fully understand it. It was a turning point for us. We still had a long way to go, but it felt like we were finally starting to understand each other. We were learning to navigate our differences and find common ground. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. Thank you for reading. Am I the idiot for giving my girlfriend another chance? After she lied about drugs and cheating me, 26-year-old male, and my girlfriend, 25-year-old female, have been dating for 3 years. She recently came clean about 2 lies, and it's left me at a crossroads. For some background, we met in college and found each other during challenging times in our lives. We've grown a lot since then, and I deeply cherish the relationship we have built. She ran with a rougher crowd back in high school and college, and has a considerable amount of baggage and past trauma. She had disclosed issues with hard drugs and alcohol abuse, and impulsive decision-making in the recent past. I made it clear early on that hard drug use was a deal breaker. She had been making some really positive changes even before we met, and is an incredibly kind, thoughtful, supportive, and caring partner overall. Lie hash 1. A few months into our relationship, I traveled out of state one weekend, and she took the opportunity to visit some old high school friends. The first night, she got absolutely wasted to the point of a mental breakdown and called me at 3 a.m. hysterically crying and depressed. The next day, she assured me that nothing crazy happened and that she just drank too much. I found it odd in knowing the friend group and questioned it. She denied lying, we fought about it, but ultimately moved past it, and there haven't been similar situations to my knowledge. Lie hash 2. A few months ago, she went to an office party for work, of which I didn't attend. I hadn't heard from her in a while, and checked her location before I went to bed. She was no longer at the office party, but at a coworker's house. The next morning, she told me she left the office party with a group of coworkers and went to her male coworker's house, where they smoked. She said she didn't partake, and I wouldn't have cared either way, and then he drove her home. I wouldn't have thought much of it, but something in her body language struck me as suspicious, and I called her out immediately. She denied lying, we fought, and ultimately moved past it. Now for an update. She recently came clean about a few things, kind of out of the blue. First, the weekend with high school friends involved the hard drugs we had agreed were a deal breaker. To my surprise, she even admitted to cheating and making out with another girl that night. She is bisexual and has multiple male and female ex-boyfriends. Also, she admitted to being courted by a married couple for a threesome that same weekend, of which she initially entertained but ultimately refused. In the other instance, there was no gathering of coworkers after the office party to smoke. Instead, a male coworker had driven her back to his house to smoke with her alone. After, he then dropped her back at her house in the early morning hours. I had not known this specific coworker to be a close friend of hers. She still denies that anything happened between them. The first lie was so long ago at this point, but I'm shocked that she lied to my face as recently as a few months ago, even after I called her out to her face. I'm not sure if these are two isolated lapses in judgment or indicative of future issues. I feel that the trust in our relationship has been broken. Looking for advice on how to proceed with this information. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Dude, she would already be my ex. This is ridiculous. I guarantee you she is trickle-truthing you on the coworker. They did more than smoke. Hell, she told you she made out with another girl and almost had a threesome with a couple the same weekend. This girl sounds like a dumpster fire. Comment 2. She lies to mitigate lies. Even when you think she is telling the truth, you will never really know. That is a hard, uncomfortable life to live if you saw her as your forever. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for reading. So, here's what's been happening since my last update. After she came clean about the lies, things got really tense between us. I needed some space to process everything, so I decided to stay at a friend's place for a few days. During that time, I couldn't stop thinking about all the times I had trusted her and how that trust was now shattered. It was hard to focus on anything else, and I kept replaying our conversations in my head, trying to figure out if there were other things she might have lied about. On the second day, she texted me, asking if we could meet up and talk. I agreed, but I was still pretty angry and hurt. When we met, she was visibly upset and apologized again for lying. She said she understood if I couldn't forgive her, but wanted to explain why she did what she did. She told me that she had been scared of losing me and thought that if she told the truth, I would leave her. She admitted that it was a stupid decision and that she regretted it deeply. We talked for hours, and she opened up about her past more than she ever had before. She told me about her struggles with addiction and how it had affected her relationships with friends and family. She explained that she had been working hard to leave that part of her life behind, but sometimes felt overwhelmed by the pressure to be perfect. She said that the night with her high school friends had been a moment of weakness, and she had been too ashamed to tell me the truth. As for the coworker, she insisted that nothing had happened between them, and that she had lied because she didn't want me to think she was being unfaithful. She admitted that it was a poor choice and that she should have been honest from the start. She promised that she would never lie to me again and asked for a chance to rebuild the trust between us. I could see that she was genuinely remorseful, but I still had my doubts. I told her that I needed more time to think about everything and that I wasn't sure if I could trust her again. She said she understood and would give me all the time I needed. Over the next few days, I tried to focus on my own feelings and what I wanted for the future. I talked to some close friends and family members about the situation, and they all had different opinions. Some thought I should give her another chance, while others believed that the trust was too damaged to repair. I felt torn between my love for her and the fear of being hurt again. One night, I was scrolling through old photos of us on my phone, and I came across a picture from our first anniversary. We looked so happy and in love, and it made me realize how much I still cared about her. I decided that I needed to give her a chance to prove that she could change and be honest with me. The next day, I called her and asked if we could meet up again. When we met, I told her that I was willing to try to rebuild our relationship, but that it would take time and effort from both of us. I said that we needed to work on our communication and that she had to be completely honest with me from now on. She agreed and promised to do whatever it took to make things right. We started going to couples therapy to help us work through our issues and rebuild the trust between us. It wasn't easy, and there were times when I felt like giving up, but I could see that she was genuinely trying to change. She was more open with me about her feelings and her past, and I could tell that she was committed to making our relationship work. During one of our therapy sessions, she shared a story from her childhood that I had never heard before. She talked about how her parents had a tumultuous relationship and how she had often felt caught in the middle. She explained that she had learned to lie and hide things to avoid conflict and protect herself. Hearing this made me understand her actions a bit more, but it also made me realize that she had a lot of unresolved issues that she needed to work on. As we continued therapy, I started to see small changes in her behavior. She was more attentive and considerate, and she made an effort to be more transparent with me. I could see that she was trying to rebuild the trust between us, and it gave me hope that we could move past this. However, there was still one thing that bothered me. I couldn't shake the feeling that there might be more lies that she hadn't told me about. I decided to confront her about it during one of our therapy sessions. I asked her if there was anything else she needed to come clean about, and she hesitated for a moment before admitting that there was one more thing. She told me that she had been in contact with an ex-boyfriend a few times during the early months of our relationship. She insisted that it was just friendly conversation and that nothing romantic had happened. But she had been afraid to tell me because she didn't want to jeopardize our relationship. Hearing this was like a punch to the gut, and I felt the trust we had been rebuilding start to crumble again. Our therapist helped us work through this new revelation, and I could see that my girlfriend was genuinely remorseful and committed to being honest from now on. It was a difficult process, but I decided to give her one last chance to prove that she could change. As we continued to work on our relationship, I started to see more positive changes in her behavior. She was more open and honest with me, and I could tell that she was making a real effort to rebuild the trust between us. It wasn't easy, and there were still moments of doubt and insecurity, but I could see that she was committed to making things right. In the end, I realized that rebuilding trust takes time and effort from both partners. It's not something that can be fixed overnight, but with patience and commitment, it is possible to move past the lies and build a stronger, more honest relationship. Thanks for reading. Am I the idiot for telling my boyfriend to stop dismissing my art and start respecting my career choices? I, 40-year-old female, used to be a prolific artist and even got a degree in illustration. It was a passion of mine, and I wanted to do art for a living. But life happened, and I wound up going in a completely different direction. You know how it is. You end up leaving your dreams behind or setting them down somewhere safe to come back to later. It's depressing, but you have to survive, and survival costs money. Despite not making it my career, over the years I've taken on small commissions from friends and acquaintances. Dungeons and Dragons character art, fan art, book covers, their main characters from their books, trading cards, original characters, etc. It isn't consistent, but I feel like it keeps me in practice and I'm paid fairly. If I take on a job, it covers my grocery bill that month, haha. I work my full-time job for 40 hours a week and then do the art side gigs on the weekends as I can. My full-time job consists of 4 10-hour days, so I have a 3-day weekend. The problem is my live-in boyfriend, 39-year-old male, doesn't really see my art as a job when I'm home from my full-time job working on a piece, or pieces for a friend. He wants me to drop what I'm doing and come hang out. He might want me to run out and grab him soda or food. He might want company. We see one another every evening and on the weekend, so it's not from a lack of quality time. He comments that I'm just drawing for my friend and it's nice of the friend to throw me a few bucks for the doodle. While we were out for dinner with his mother, aunt, and 2 siblings 2 weeks ago, my art came up in the conversation. I said I struggled to price my work, especially with friends. His family was urging me to raise my prices, and he cut in, saying my prices were low and fair because I was out of practice and just doing it for fun for friends. This really hurt me. Later, when we were home, I confronted him about it, and he said I couldn't consider it a career anyway. He said he'd love to see me do art for a living, but I need to buckle down and make it a priority if I wanted it that badly. He doesn't see that. He sees me watching YouTube or scrolling on my phone off and on as I doodle character art for people who ask for too many changes or take too long to pay me. He says it isn't a legitimate job right now. It's just a little hobby. Sure, I make a few bucks, but it's really just my friends throwing me cash because they know I'm struggling financially, and it's a kind and subtle way to give charity. He would support me with my art if I were serious about it, but I'm not. So now I'm sitting here looking at this piece I was hired to do for a friend, and I feel so discouraged. I don't even want to work on it. To add, my boyfriend can be very blunt and say things like that. He can also be very kind, he just has no filter. I suspect he's on the spectrum. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1, what advice are you seeking? He is a selfish person. So why does it have to be a job instead of just a hobby? Why can't you do what you enjoy during your free time, whether or not it earns money? It seems to me that he feels entitled to your free time and does not care that this hobby or job brings you joy, as it takes away from you taking care of his needs. He would be furious about it if this happened at my house. My dream was to become a veterinarian, but I ended up in the IT field. I also volunteer in wildlife rehabilitation. It not only takes up a lot of time, but I also cover all the expenses. If my partner reacted poorly to this, we would not be together. Instead, he is incredibly supportive, and when he talks about it to others, he sounds proud rather than dismissive. Comment 2. He wants me to go out and get him a soda and food. My partner would never expect that, even if I was sitting on the couch doing nothing, and especially not when I am clearly busy working. Can you count how many times this selfish, narcissistic man has spontaneously gone out to get you food and soda while you were working on your art? I'll wait. Now for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for reading. So 3 days ago, things took a turn. I was working on a commission for a friend, trying to shake off the discouragement from my boyfriend's comments. I had just finished the line art and was about to start coloring when my boyfriend came in and asked if I could run to the store to get him some snacks. I told him I was in the middle of something important, and he got visibly annoyed. He said, "It's just a drawing, it can wait." That really stung, but I tried to stay calm and explain that I had a deadline to meet. He huffed and left the room, and I thought that was the end of it. But later that evening, he brought it up again. He said he felt like I was ignoring him, and that my art was taking up too much of my time. I tried to explain that this was something I was passionate about, and that it was also a source of income, but he just couldn't see it that way. He said, "If you were serious about this, you'd be making real money, not just a few bucks here and there." That was the last straw for me. I told him that I needed some space to think and went to stay with a friend for the night. The next day, I decided to take a hard look at my situation. I realized that I had been letting my boyfriend's opinions hold me back for too long. I decided to take a leap of faith and put more effort into my art. I reached out to a few more friends and acquaintances and let them know that I was open for commissions. I also started working on a portfolio to showcase my work online. It was a lot of work, but it felt good to be taking control of my passion. Meanwhile, my boyfriend was texting me, asking when I was coming home. I told him I needed a few more days to clear my head. He wasn't happy about it, but he didn't push. I think he realized that he had crossed a line. On the second day, I got a message from an old college friend who works in the publishing industry. She said she had seen some of my recent work on social media and was impressed. She asked if I would be interested in illustrating a children's book she was working on. I was over the moon. This was the kind of opportunity I had been dreaming of. I immediately said yes, and we set up a meeting to discuss the details. That evening, I called my boyfriend to tell him the news. I hoped that he would be happy for me, but his reaction was lukewarm at best. He said, "That's great, but don't get your hopes up too high. It's just one book." I was disappointed, but I didn't let it get to me. I knew this was a big step in the right direction. On the third day, I went back home to talk things over with my boyfriend. I told him about my plans to take my art more seriously and that I needed his support. He seemed to understand, but he also made it clear that he still didn't see it as a viable career. He said, "I'll support you, but you need to prove to me that this is more than just a hobby." It wasn't the response I was hoping for, but it was a start. We agreed to set some boundaries. I would dedicate specific hours to my art, and he would respect that time. In return, I would make an effort to spend quality time with him outside of those hours. It wasn't a perfect solution, but it was a compromise we could both live with. As I started working on the children's book, I found myself more motivated than ever. I was determined to prove to myself and to my boyfriend that I could make a career out of my passion. The more I worked, the more I realized how much I had missed doing art full time. It was challenging, but it was also incredibly rewarding. Looking back, I think this whole experience has been a wake-up call for both of us. My boyfriend has started to see that my art is more than just a hobby, and I have learned to stand up for my passion. It's not going to be easy, but I believe that with hard work and determination, I can make my dream a reality. Thanks for reading. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.